The name segmenter page in the Field Agent module allows you to segment your list of names and output those to various formats. Most often, it's used to produce mailing lists, but can also be used to analyze your giving data. To access the page, you click the Name Segment button at the top of the main page. The page starts with some instructions. Let's review those. 1. Name Segmenter produces a list of names based on your filter conditions. That simply means that you're going to reach into your big bucket of names and pull out the ones you want based on the filters you select below. For example, you could get a list of names that are in the family list by selecting that filter. Or you could get a list of names who gave more than $500 this year. 2. Select filters below. Each filter you select uses an AND operator between them. Using my example, you could get a list of names that are in the family name list and gave more than $500 this year. The AND means that both things must be true. You can select as many filters as you want, but they all have an AND operator between them, with one exception which we'll see in a minute. Number 3. If you select no filter conditions, you get all name records. In other words, none of the filters are required. If you run the segment with no filters, you will get all names. Only use the filters you need for the output you want. Number 4, select an output option at the bottom of the page. Your selection will run the query or segment. Let's move down to the bottom of the page. Here, there are a number of buttons. For example, click Count, and Denari will find the names based on the filters you selected above and deliver a file to your inbox showing the number of names that the segment produces. Sometimes all you need to know is how many people gave more than $500 this year. You can see the other options here, and we'll cover some of them in a little more detail later. Number 5, retrieve your output from the inbox by hitting the button at the top of the page, and we see that button in the upper right corner. So let's discuss the filters. The first section is Name Lists. In the first video, we explained how to assign donors to name lists. Now you can use those to produce your list. You select a list by clicking on it to highlight it. I'll click Family to get a list of the names in that list. I can select more than one by holding down my Control key and clicking Others. If I select Friends here, I will get a list of names that are in the family list or the friends list. There is an OR operator between the selections here, and that's the one exception to rule number 2 that we had talked about earlier. This is the only place where you have an OR operator inside the list boxes. Notice that there are 2 columns here, Include and Exclude. Exclude allows me to get a list of names and remove name lists from that output. For example, I might want to find everyone who gave more than $500, but remove friends from that output. Just select it in the Exclude box. Also in this section is the Deliverable field. The Home Office has the ability to mark an address non-deliverable. These are usually addresses where the mail has been returned by the post office as undeliverable. You can choose to include those in your output or not by using this field. The Pledges box is fairly self-explanatory. You can get names with pledges that are less than 60 days behind, more than 60 days behind, etc. There's also a section here for people without pledges to find people who have never given in some time period. If we also select something in the Nameless box, there will be an AND operator between them. For example, you can get a list of people in the Friends list who are more than 60 days behind on their pledge. The name list filter and the pledge filter both have to be true. I've been talking about finding people who gave more than $500 this year. You can do that in the donor giving statistics section. As it says here, the three fields on the left are a set and all go together. If you use one, you have to use them all. Start by selecting a calculation method. Total amount given adds up the donor's gifts and compares them to the filters below. If we put 500 in the low amount range and then 999 in the upper, then change the date range below to the dates for some year, we will get anyone whose total gifts are more than $500 in that date range. Quantity of gifts refers to the number of gifts, not the dollar amount. So in this example, we're getting anyone who gave more than 500 gifts, which will probably produce 0. But you could use this field to find frequent givers by putting a 10 in the low amount field. And that would give you anyone who gave more than 10 times in this time period. Average gift amount will give you anyone where the average of their gifts in the date range is more than 500. Largest gift is looking at the biggest gift in that date range, and if it's more than 500, they'll be in the output. And then finally, smallest gift is just the opposite. It's going to look for the smallest gift. To find anyone who has given this year, just put a 1 in that low amount field. You can't use this field, however, to find anyone who has not given by using 0. This filter queries the stats table. If someone has not ever given a gift, they have no giving stats and therefore are not in the table. So there's no one there to find. Of course, as mentioned earlier, we could use this to find anyone on the friends list who gave more than $500 by using these two filters. To the right, we have 3 separate filters: first gift, last gift, and largest gift. You will enter dates in the first and last gift fields. And by the way, always use the 4-digit year with dates. You'll enter a dollar amount in the largest gift field, and you don't need the $sign or decimal points. The last gift field can be helpful in finding people who gave last year but not this year. Simply put the dates for last year in those fields. If the donor's last gift was in that date range, they will be in the output. If they had given this year, they won't be in the output because their last gift will be outside the date range. One of the options from this name segmenter is email. And actually, there are 2 versions of that, which we'll explore in a minute. First, let me say that this email option is fairly basic. It doesn't do email tracking or give donors the option to opt out. It simply lets you send an email to a group of names based on your filters. It's a pretty easy way to communicate. As I said, there are 2 forms of email output here. One is plain text, and the other allows you to create a more sophisticated email using HTML. The text one is simple. Type your subject here and the email message in this box, and then click on Send Text Email. At that point, Denari finds the list of names based on your filters and sends the emails. There's no turning back at this point, so be sure you really want to send them before clicking the button. The second form of email uses the HTML editor. Click the Edit with HTML Editor link here to open the editor. And let me shrink this down just a little bit for you so you can see this now. Here you're creating a mini web page, and you can be as simple or as complicated as you want. Let's look at some simple things you can do with the text. First, I can highlight a word and click the B button to bold that word. You can also see that we have italicize and underline buttons as well. As you look across the top two button bars, you'll find many of the same types of buttons that you would find in a word processor like Microsoft Word. So you could pretty much stop there if you want. You can also insert a photo. Place the cursor where you want the photo to go, then click the photo button, and then click the button to the right of the source field to open up your library. If your photo that you want to use isn't here, you can click the upload button to browse your computer and then upload the photo to your library. Select the photo you want and then click insert. And here, if you want to, you could resize the photo before you actually insert it into the document. I'll just go ahead and click on OK. You'll notice that the text sits at the bottom of the photo. This is normal HTML. It's not a Denari thing. You have to cause the text to wrap around the photo, and you can do that in one of two ways, but I'll show you the easy way. That is to click on the photo, to highlight it here, and then click on Insert Photo button again. And we get this little window that we saw before. Click the Advanced tab and enter the style you want. In this case, we want to float the photo to the left. Floating the photo causes the text to wrap around the photo. So I'll type it as like this: float colon, and then you can put a space or not if you want to, and then left, and close that or finish that with a semicolon. And I'll click OK. Now you can see that the text wraps around the photo. But the text jams up against the side of the photo and doesn't really look very good in that with that spacing. So we can change that by adding a different style. So again, click the photo to highlight it. We'll click the Insert Photo button once again, and then the Advanced tab. And now in the horizontal space field, I'm just going to put a 10, which stands for 10 pixels. That means that we're going to put a margin on the left and the right side of the photo, and it's going to be 10 pixels wide. You can come back later and adjust that if you need it. You could also enter a vertical margin here if we wanted as well. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and you can see that it's put a little margin around the side of the photo, and that looks a little bit better. If you have some HTML skills, you can click the source code button here to view the document in HTML and make your edits there. Once you're done, click on the Save button here at the top and then close the window. And now back on the name segmenter page, we can click the Send HTML Email button and off it goes. Again, be sure that this is what you really want to do. The List Membership section below refers to the total list of names, or your total list of names. You can use this filter to find names that have been added to your main list within a date range. Now, we've already looked a little at the buttons in the output section down here, but there are a few that need some explanation. One, the Labels button will produce labels in the Avery 5160 format. They are a 3-column wide with 10 rows. Labels 2 Up produces labels in 2 columns with 10 rows. The Envelopes button will produce number 10 envelopes. ASCII will give you the data in a generic format that most of the time you could use to import into another program. Excel is pretty straightforward. The Report button gives you a list of names with addresses, phone numbers, and email in a PDF format. You can give that report a title in this field if needed. And then finally, the Database button will give you an old-style DBF format. Again, you would probably use this to import to another program. Clicking any of these buttons will run the segment. And all of these output options will go to your inbox as we looked at earlier, and you can pick them up there. This concludes this video. If you have any questions, please contact your home office.